As I entered G-Boy, the very last section on Bloodbath, I knew that this was it. After living my entire life thinking I would never beat this level, after all the challenges, all the triumphs, so many people supporting me believing I could do it, and even some people who didn't think I could do it, it was all about to come to an end. And I couldn't believe it myself. I've been playing Geometry Dash for about 12 years now, and for the first 11 of those years, I actually progressed extremely slowly. Over the span of more than a decade, I beat less than 20 demons and never beat anything harder than B. And fun fact, B was actually my hardest completion all the way up until August of 2025. But let's go back to the inciting incident on my journey to beat Bloodbath. It was the beginning of summer in 2025. School had just got out and me and my friends were on an off-roading trip. One night, we were chilling in the trailer when one of my friends told me about a cool level they heard about on Geometry Dash called Skeletal Shenanigans. At that point, I hadn't played Geometry Dash for a long time, but I decided to check it out and I couldn't get past the first few clicks. So I decided I was never beating that or anything harder than it. It's just too far outside my skill range. And that was the end of it. I didn't play any more Skeletal Shenanigans. But then a few weeks later, after I got home, the level had gained some more popularity. It was now the most popular medium demon in the game, and so I decided to complete it in practice mode. It took me way too many attempts, because that first spider section was very difficult. But I decided to play from zero anyways, and slowly but surely made progress. First, I got to 40%, which to me was mind-blowing because I never thought I'd get to that cube section. And then, I got to the boss fight, and then I passed the boss fight, and then, after 2 days and 600 attempts, I beat Skeletal Shenanigans. And for the first time in years, I had a new hardest level. And this was really the spark for me to keep going and to get better at this game. What's interesting is that Bloodbath was never actually an end goal for me. I just wanted to play this game and have fun with it. And so, after beating Skeletal Shenanigans, I remembered a level that for the past 3 years, I had been trying to complete. And that level was Theory of Everything 3 by Manic648. 3 years prior, I had managed to get a 90% run from zero, so I thought, at this point, any attempt could be the one. So I threw attempt after attempt after attempt at that level, and for some reason, I just couldn't do it. By the way, a little off topic, but a lot of people do this level for their first hard demon. I do not recommend it. The gameplay is awkward, and it's kind of just a buggy mess. No hate to the creator, though. Manic648 is great at making levels. But anyway, after a few weeks, I made the wise choice to drop the level. This is the first time in my entire life that I had dropped a level. But it was approaching Halloween, and since I still wanted to beat my first hard demon, I picked up Crazy because I thought that'd be a great level to fit the season. At this time, it was 2 months away from Halloween, and I didn't know if I could beat it in time because Theory of Everything 3, another hard demon, had taken me so long and I still hadn't beaten it. Regardless, I went into the level and I practiced every single section. Before long, I was playing from zero, and I was absolutely shocked when, in 6 days after picking up the level, I managed to beat it in 1,700 attempts. This was absolutely my proudest accomplishment. I was in absolute disbelief that I had just beaten a hard demon, because I used to think that they were impossible, and you can still see a post to this day on my Geometry Dash account that says, "I can't believe it, I just beat a hard demon." And so, since Halloween was still a good ways away, I decided to pick up Crazy 2. This level looked like an unpassable wall that I would never be able to beat. After all, it's rated Insane Demon, and Insane Demons are impossible, right? I ended up beating Crazy 2 in 5 days, in 200 less attempts than Crazy 1. Granted, it is hard to call Crazy 2 an Insane Demon, considering the last 60% is almost completely free once you've learned it. At this point, I realized that I had 2 out of the 3 levels in the Crazy trilogy complete. So I thought, why not try to go for Crazy 3? And so I did. But while the other Crazy levels looked like unpassable walls, but then turned out not to be so bad once you started to actually play them, Crazy 3, for me at least, was an unpassable wall. This level contained all the things that I was bad at. It was really long, had a really hard, nerve-wracking ending, and was filled with really tight timings. I only had the level in 12 runs when I started playing from zero. And every time I started to get kind of far into the level, this stupid duel would ruin every single run. And so, after about a month, I decided to drop Crazy 3, only to pick up something that's even harder. I was out of my mind, and I knew that I was out of my mind when I picked up Hypersonic. My whole life, I've been obsessed with this level. Not only do I think the song is great, but the decoration also looks really cool, and the duels, while looking kind of terrible to play, looked awesome. Going into it, I knew that there was probably about a 90% chance that I would drop the level. After all, it's an extreme demon, and up to this point, I lived my whole life thinking that I would never, ever be an extreme demon. But here I was. So, I started at the end, practicing that until I knew I could do it consistently, and then slowly moved backwards throughout the level, learning every single part. And before I knew it, I was playing from zero, on an extreme demon. I had the whole level learned, now it was all about getting that one lucky attempt. This is also the point when I switched over to PC and started streaming. And on October 27th, 2025, after only a few minutes of streaming, I did it, and had this legendary reaction.
Yes! 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 I did it! I did it! Oh my gosh! Yes!
And even though I had just done the impossible and beat my first extreme demon, I knew that I wanted to go even higher. And interestingly enough, the plan was never to go for Bloodbath next. I actually wanted to go for Eon, a 55-minute long extreme demon that I first heard about on a Daily Dose of Geometry Dash video, which I then told about to one of my friends, who jokingly told me that I should go for it. But I took that seriously, and that was what I was going to do next. But out of curiosity, right before I started playing it, I looked up where Eon was on the all-rated Extreme Demons list, and saw that it was only 2 spots below Bloodbath. And I realized, Bloodbath is the more impressive achievement, and it's more recognizable. Why don't I just try to go for that? Once again, I was completely out of my mind, and I knew I was out of my mind. But I didn't care. After all, you never know if you can do something if you never try it. And so, I started up my very first Bloodbath stream, and opened with these words.
And we are live. So, yeah. I'm delusional, basically. So, I'm making another big jump, and I'm beating Bloodbath.
And so began the 2-month-long process of completing this monstrosity of a level. When you're going for a new hardest, especially if it's a big jump, it's important to familiarize yourself with the end of the level first before you start playing from zero. And so, I started out by trying to get 93 to 100%. This included the entirety of G-Boy's section, which is the very last part on Bloodbath. I was able to do that in a pretty reasonable amount of time, but as I started to move backwards through the level, since each section felt like a challenge in and of itself, getting runs to 100 became more and more difficult, and took longer and longer to do. Eventually, I arrived at Etzer's part, which is what I would consider the third and final major choke point in Bloodbath. But for some reason, this part, more than any other part, was so hard to learn, and I just couldn't get consistent at it no matter how hard I tried. Getting a run from 70 to 100% seemed impossible, and to think that I would have to do this after making it through everything that came before, this is really when it dawned on me what I had signed myself up for. Regardless, after spending way more time than I probably should have on that section, I managed to push through and get 70 to 100%.
Took so freaking long, bro. It did not have to take that long.
And with that, I had just done the last third of Bloodbath. By the way, shout out to this guy who made this video about how to beat Bloodbath, because it genuinely saved me so much time while learning this level. So if you're going for Bloodbath, I highly recommend watching the entirety of that video. Anyways, next it was time to move back into the second third of Bloodbath. This included Crack's part and Asonic Men's part. I learned Asonic Men's part decently quickly, and it didn't seem that bad. And then, it was time to do the most menacing part of this entire level, Crack's part. This part features some extremely difficult looking ship gameplay, with gaps that are less than a block wide, and some crazy straight fly and maneuver fly that you have to do over a long period of time. I'm not joking or exaggerating when I say that I probably spent a total of 6 hours just learning that part. This part also made me realize that I was playing on the wrong device. I was using the up arrow key on my Red Dragon K668, and as much as I do love this keyboard, the polling rate is pretty low, so it felt like playing on 60 Hz even though I was running 240 Hz. But since my mouse has an 8000 Hz polling rate, I switched to that and quickly got a lot better at this. And then I had an idea. Even though I had struggled a lot just to get 70 to 100%, I had the crazy idea of trying to get 42 to 100%, meaning I'd have to clear 2 major choke points in one run. And so for a few streams, that's what I was trying to do. And after a while, I ended up doing it. This is when I realized that this might actually be doable. Also, I'm pretty sure this part single-handedly is the reason that I'm ship carried now. There was a certain point when I was playing this part, and the ship just started to feel different for some reason. Out of nowhere, I could control it really good and pull off some really clean straight fly. After this was finally over, I moved backwards into the first third of Bloodbath, starting by practicing Evasium. It was a little bit hard to learn, but overall was not that bad. But even though I had almost all of the level learned at this point, I knew that I hadn't cleared the biggest hurdle yet, because I still had to learn the hardest part of Bloodbath, and that was next. This is Michigan's part. It's the first major choke point in Bloodbath, what is for many people the single hardest part of the entire level, and the only part featuring a frame perfect, and that is this second UFO click. I knew that if I was going to drop Bloodbath, this part would be the reason. But the thing is, it had been talked up so much in terms of difficulty, I was expecting it to take me even longer than crack to get good at. But the thing is, it didn't. I was really surprised when I started to be able to clear Michigan pretty consistently after not a lot of time of playing it. With this boost of confidence, I finished off the learning stage of Bloodbath, starting with this ball section, which if you can do timings, it's pretty free. I can't do timings, but that didn't matter. I then moved on to this ship section, which looks pretty menacing, and it is pretty hard when you start playing it, but it gets extremely consistent, with the exception of this gap at 11% where your height is really inconsistent. Now, I was so close. I quickly learned the ball, and then this straight fly, and then that was it. I could play Bloodbath from zero. I forgot who it was that said this, but someone put it very well when they said, you have no idea how many choke points Bloodbath has until you play from zero. But for the first few days of playing Bloodbath from zero, this didn't really apply. I made progress pretty quickly, passing Michigan way sooner than I expected. And I think I only died at Evasium a single time during an entire stream. When I got my first run at 43%, I was so happy because that meant I had Bloodbath in 2 runs. And when you have it in 2 runs, that's the point where you know you're getting close. At this rate, I was going to beat it in no time. Then, not long after, I had my first death past the halfway point at 61%. I could beat it next week if I really tried, right? But after this, I fell into a little bit of a slump. I kept dying to random things that I never died to before, and this is where that quote comes into effect. For example, this wave at the very end of Michigan's part. For most people, it's the UFO they struggle with, and it's understandable because it's really hard. But this freaking wave, for no reason, killed me every freaking time. At this point, my goal was to get to Etzer. And after a few days, I thought I was finally going to do it, but then I died at 65% in this orb spam. It was tragic, but I didn't mind that much. I just kept trying and trying and trying. And eventually, I got there again. And then died there again. And then died there 3 times. And then 4 times. It felt like no matter how much I practiced it, it was just never consistent. But eventually, after way too much practicing, I found the trick. And here's what it is. When you first enter this corridor, click at a fast but controlled pace. Then, as you go deeper into the corridor, accelerate your click rate. With this, you can get through it almost every time. Also, because this section requires such fast clicking, this was the only section where I switched back to my up arrow key, and then once I passed it, I would go back to my mouse. And after learning this, I finally got through it. And then died literally 2 clicks before Etzer's part started. But that didn't matter, because not long after, I finally did it, and I got to Etzer's part. I died at 77%, but I didn't even care because I had reached my goal. At this point, I was so close, I could feel it. I was really hoping to get a fluke from 77, but instead of fluking, I just slowly chiseled away at the level. Until eventually, I got 89%. At this point, it's stream 19. Literally anyone could be the attempt now. This had to be the stream. Because this whole time I'd been in a race against time because the next day I would be leaving on a trip to Florida, and that trip lasted 9 days. Over that time, I would lose all my consistency. I was so close. And then it never happened. I left on my trip, still not a Bloodbath victor. However, there was a silver lining, and that was that over the time that I was in Florida, Christmas would happen, and for Christmas, I got a SEO device. Because as much as my mouse worked just fine, I really don't like the way mouse requires you to click. I much preferred when I used up arrow key and moved my wrist to click. And my SEO device allowed me to do that, but have the same accuracy that my mouse had. I expected to come home and take a good while to 1, get used to the SEO device, and 2, regain my consistency with Bloodbath, and so the next few streams probably wouldn't be any special. On my 21st stream, I started struggling again out of nowhere, once again dying to random parts that I almost never died to. And this all happened after I died a third time to 89%, which could be seen as a good thing because it means I'm getting consistent, but it was just really demotivating for me. So I went into the start position copy, desperately trying to get consistent, but it kind of felt hopeless. And then it came out of nowhere.
I gotta play from zero. I really just want to beat it right now, bro. I beat it! I beat Bloodbath! Oh my gosh! I beat it! I beat it! What? What? I beat it! Okay. Can we do it 2 times in a row? That's the question.
Okay, let's...
It's a glitch in the universe. It's not meant to happen. Okay, so I didn't beat it again.
But you beat it!
What?
You did it.
But as much as this was an incredible journey, and it's something that I never thought I would be able to do, I assure you that this is not the end. In the future, I plan on going for levels that are much, much harder than Bloodbath. But that's for another time. For now, I want to thank everyone who ever joined any of my streams. Whether you're a regular viewer who joins every stream, or whether you just joined for a few minutes, I appreciate everyone that interacts with me. So thank you guys so much. Thank you so much for watching. Subscribe if you want, because this video took me a long freaking while to make, and I will see you guys next time.